Hey there everybody, welcome. I'm going to show you the 3 best ways to just get started on anything that you are hoping to start, whether it's a personal project, a business project, consulting project, client work. I don't care what you're trying to start. You're going to want to watch this video if you're stuck in trying to get started. I'm going to get right into these 3 methods, and I am going to just start, but I want to talk about a couple things first real quick. Most of the advice out there from pretty much everybody about getting started is to just get started. They just say, just start, which is easier said than done. Even me, this channel right here, I'll bare my soul to you here just a little bit. I have been struggling to start this channel. I didn't know what I wanted to talk about. The other thing is I kind of got into the typical trap that I think everybody gets into. I wanted everything to be perfect. I wanted to have the perfect camera. I wanted to have the perfect lighting, which again, you can see right here in the window if I can figure out which way to put my finger. You can see it right there. so as you can see, not perfect, right? So sometimes we do just have to get started. Sometimes we just have to put something out there. I think something that people forget is that you never know where just getting started is going to lead. It could lead to something amazing. It could be leading to something that you never expected. I already actually shot this video, and in the other video I was talking about one of my favorite YouTubers who talks about houseplants, and his name is Nick. I'll put a link to his channel down below actually so you can check him out. But in one of his videos he talks about how what he never expected to happen from his channel was to get his dream job, where he now works at a place that sells houseplants, and it is like his dream job basically, and he got that just because he started his YouTube channel. And I feel like that's what people need to realize, is that things don't have to be perfect, things don't have to be polished, and everything doesn't have to be right. We just have to get started. So again, I do feel like the people that do provide the advice that say just get started, I do feel like it's kind of good advice, because again, you never know what could happen. But I wanted to kind of show these 3 methods for what you could actually do, and I also wanted to provide examples as well. So let's get started. The first thing you can do is called active learning, or at least I call it active learning. I don't actually know what it's called, but this is the other thing with just getting started. Don't be afraid to be wrong, right? I just had to get this video out there. I don't actually know if this technique is called active learning, but for some reason it's stuck in my brain as active learning. So active learning is where you literally teach people how to do something while you are also learning to do it. I think this is probably one of the best methods. I do feel like this is the #1 method for just getting started on something that you want to start. So for example, like myself here, just to give you an example, I used to be a copywriter, and one of the things that I did while I was a copywriter is I had another YouTube channel where I was just talking about copywriting, just things that I thought were cool about copywriting, things that I was doing. I even did an entire series where I was writing an advertorial on YouTube, and I went through the whole process of how to write an advertorial. That whole series actually got me 2 clients off of YouTube. So if you do client work, for example, or if you're hoping to do some sort of client work, I feel like a great way to do it is to start a YouTube channel where maybe you just talk about the process, or you just talk about things that are cool that have to do with whatever it is that you do. And that's what I did. I literally just talked about cool techniques about copywriting that I found during the day. I was by no means an expert. Granted, I had a lot of experience in copywriting at the time, but also, I wasn't well known in the industry at the time or anything like that. So I feel like active learning is great for and teaching people how to do something, or just talking about things that you're learning about is a really great way to either get clients or to get started on something that you are wanting to get started on. The other benefit of active learning is that people get to see you grow. They get to see you go from the beginning to the end of your process. And if you're doing this on YouTube, for example, where you're teaching people how to do something, or maybe you're sharing the process of what you're learning, it's like people get to see you go from the beginning to the end. The great thing about this as well, that I kind of think, is that you get to be inspirational. So people get to see you at the beginning where maybe you weren't very good at whatever it was you were doing, and you're showing other people that something is possible. You are inspiring other people, which to me is kind of like a really great thing to do. I think there's some famous wrestler, I can't remember his name either, but he says something along the lines of, don't teach people, inspire people. And I really like that saying a lot. Maybe someone down in the comments down below can tell me who that wrestler is. I can't remember his name. I think it's the Ultimate Warrior or something like that. Not a wrestling fan, doesn't matter, right? But the point is, inspiring people can be very powerful, and it's a really great thing to do. So I just wanted to run down a couple more ways that this could work for your business or for whatever you're trying to get started. I've had a bunch of people who have Etsy businesses and things like that. So let's say you're trying to start an Etsy business. I feel like active learning could be used to maybe teach people a new technique that you're learning. Let's say that you are an artist and maybe you're trying to do a painting or you're doing a new painting or something like that. Doing tutorials on YouTube is a great way and would be a great way to get attention. So I feel like that would be one way. Another way is I have a lot of people who want to start e-commerce businesses in the first place. There's a million things I think you could do in e-commerce with active learning. You could be talking about the product. You could be teaching people about the uses of the product as well. The other thing you could do with e-commerce is you could just document your journey in general of opening your shop and getting started. I've known several other people who have done similar things, and they kind of like document their journey, and they get a lot of attention for just doing that. And to me, that could lead to sales. It's like if people like you, who knows, maybe they're not going to buy your products if you're documenting the journey, but maybe they'll send it to someone who does, or you never know what can happen. I think that's the whole part and the whole point of just getting started is, like I said at the beginning, you never know what's going to happen. Like I said, with client work, it's really easy, depending on what your service is. If you do client work, just talking about it. Like I said, I feel like the most important thing would be finding the coolest things that you could possibly find, the coolest tricks. So, that's what worked for me really well with the copywriting. Is I would just do videos on like the things that I thought were really cool, or the things that I thought would really work, or if I learned a new technique that I thought would be really helpful, I would just share that idea, or I would share that technique. And I think that that's what you should focus on if you're going to do active learning, where you're teaching other people, especially on YouTube or anywhere else. That focusing on helpful is probably going to be your best bet. Again, I would actually not focus on getting sales if you're doing active learning. It should be kind of looked at as you just building a tribe almost, and that's going to be our first technique for just getting started. The next technique that we're going to talk about for just getting started on anything that you want to get started on is breaking it down to the smallest part. So this is, again, a pretty simple technique. It's pretty obvious as well as far as I'm concerned, but the way to do this is to break things down to the smallest part. I was talking to somebody the other day who wants to be a writer, and I said, do people even want to read your writing? I mean, that's like the first step. Like, will people actually read what you have to write? So if you have an idea that you want to get started on, break it down to the smallest part. What I told this person who was writing to do, as I said, just write something and put it out there and see if people are willing to write it. It could be something very short, as like just write something like a short story, put it on Facebook, and see how people react to it. So I feel like breaking things down and kind of testing things out is kind of the way to go. Another way to do this is like, I've had people who want to start restaurants, and I always say, like, do your friends eat your food? That's like the first step. So I feel like we have to like break things down to smaller pieces to get started on whatever it is that we want to get started on. To give you some examples of breaking things down to the smallest part, again, if you were to maybe start a YouTube channel, for example, I think people make YouTube channels way too complicated. Just start with something small. Start with one video. It could be very, very short. I think people get too caught up in kind of like making sure they have the perfect camera, the perfect equipment. They get too caught up in what they're going to talk about. Just break things down. Talk about one thing that you're interested in on a channel, on a YouTube channel. I always tell people too that down and dirty works. I mean, there are some very popular YouTube channels out there that are shot all on iPhones that look kind of amateurish, whatever you want to call it. And I feel like this is beneficial. I feel like this overproduced stuff on YouTube is not beneficial. I feel like people are going the other direction. They want to see genuine. They want to see real. And that's the other part of just getting started. I feel like if we just get started and we're just genuine and real, then people will kind of attach to that as well. Let's use the e-commerce example as well. If you're hoping to start an e-commerce business, maybe you don't have a ton of money to buy products, or maybe you don't have a ton of money to get the resources to sell something. There are several things you could do. You could buy what you can and sell it on eBay, so that would be breaking it down to a smaller part. Maybe you want to create your own product. Another great thing to do is I've talked to a lot of people who want to create their own products, who want to like invent something, or who want to improve upon an existing product that already exists. I always tell those people, find that product or find something similar and sell that product first. Like, if you have an idea, let's just say that you have an idea to sell, what do I have here? I have this Ninja cooker right here, right? Let's say that you want to invent your own crock pot like this. I would tell people, you know what, why don't you go out and see if these sell first? You know, some of the greatest things you could do, you could probably get these on sale somewhere, and you know, on a deal, maybe like a Black Friday deal I'm thinking about or something like that, and you could just resell it on eBay for full price and just see if people buy the product in the first place. Sometimes I think people have a really great idea to start something or sell something, and I'm always like, just why not just buy what already exists, especially in the e-commerce world, and see if it will sell in the first place. You never know. People might not buy it. Yeah, you might see them all over the place, but maybe, maybe there's a problem with a crock pot, for example. Maybe the fact is that maybe people only have to buy one of these like every 10 years because they last for a long time. So maybe people aren't buying them right now. So I always tell people, test out the market first, especially in e-commerce, and that's an easy way to do it, is to just test it out. The other way that you could do this is drop shipping, of course, is always an option. Now, I would be careful with drop shipping. You know, there are tons of people on YouTube that talk about drop shipping, how easy it is, and all this other stuff. You know, again, I would be careful of like listening to some of those people. I feel like some of them are like scammy and things like that, but it definitely is an option. I would definitely do your research first into drop shipping, but I would also be careful of, you know, some of these like courses and things like that out there that talk about making tons of money with drop shipping. I would definitely avoid that, actually, and I would like try to find a good resource about it if that's something that you're interested in. And finally, let's talk about client work for just getting started with the breaking it down method. I feel like breaking client work down to the smallest piece. Let's say you've never had a client before. To me, this shouldn't even matter, but if you're trying to do client work or something like that, I feel like you could offer a smaller service, of course. You could offer your service at a steep discount. The other thing you can do, I think, and this is probably better in my mind, is to offer your services to a potential client at as a performance basis, or on a performance basis, I should say. So you could offer your services based off of performance, or you could say, you know, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z for you, and if it performs, pay me. It's not really breaking it down, but it kind of is. Again, I would kind of like break it down maybe to something simple. Let's just use copywriting as an example. Maybe you wouldn't want to write a whole entire sales letter for a potential new client. Maybe that's not something you want to do, but you could maybe start with their emails or something like that and offer just email services, something smaller on a smaller level, and then you could kind of grow from there. And finally, one of the easiest ways to just get started is to mimic success, of course, to do what already works. I feel like sometimes people try to reinvent the wheel, they try to go crazy and do all these, you know, crazy different new things, but sometimes we just have to get started, right? And we just have to mimic what is already working. So if you're trying to start a YouTube channel, for example, maybe you need to go out and see what videos are working in your niche or in whatever it is that you're already doing, and just do what works, mimic success. We don't want to copy people, of course. We don't want to steal from other people, but there's nothing wrong with, you know, kind of mimicking what other people are doing, or kind of taking things and putting them in your own words, especially on something like YouTube. Of course, again, you're going to want to do your research. You're not going to want to steal things from other people, but it's definitely a great way to get started. Let's use e-commerce as well as another example. Again, if you're wanting to start an e-commerce business, just looking at what's selling and selling it. It's just that simple. And same thing with client work as well. If you notice that there's a bunch of people offering a certain type of client work, maybe it's something that you want to mimic, or maybe you want to kind of mimic the success of people who are doing certain types of client work. And you know, I feel like that would be a really great idea. One thing to think about is like, just to use copywriting as an example, again, is that maybe you go out and you want to offer email services, but maybe nobody's buying email services anymore. Maybe people are like, you know what, email is kind of dead. I'm not saying this is true, but maybe that's what happens. Maybe that's what you find out after doing some research. But maybe there's like some other copywriter who's offering a service to build funnels or something like that, and then you could do that. So I feel like that's a great way to get started, of course, mimicking success. I put it as the last one. To me, it's the most obvious one. To me, it's not the most necessarily like the most important one, because to me, it's just very obvious. So that's that. Thank you everybody for watching. Definitely let me know down below in the comments what you are going to get started, and you know, what method you're going to use, if it's going to be one of these methods, or maybe you have your own method. Definitely let everybody know down below. Please make sure to leave a like and a comment. Like I said, I really appreciate all the support. Make sure to subscribe if you want more videos like this, and thank you for watching.